Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the South Kesteven series, 83 parishes surrounding the town of Grantham in southern Lincolnshire, which are full of history. Let's check one of them out. Welcome back to South Kesteven, everybody, and welcome to another pretty little English village, one with a free car park right in its centre, which is very helpful to me because it's the perfect place for me to park to have a walk around this. This is quite a sort of out of the way place. It's kind of 2 or 3 miles away from any other civilization really, which makes it probably one of the best ones to actually cover, because out here everybody knows everybody. There's a strong sense of community. This is Skillington. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Skillington is a small village in the South Kesteven district of Lincolnshire whose western parish boundary is defined by the Viking Way, which forms the boundary between Lincolnshire and Leicestershire. A community for centuries, Skillington was first settled thanks to an obvious and abundant water supply, with many spring-fed wells and Cringle Brook, which feeds into the River Witham at Great Ponton. Skillington is built mainly of locally quarried stone, and a large area of its mellow stone buildings are within a conservation area. The present population of around 300 inhabitants was boosted in recent years by a large building development, but it still falls well short of the maximum population of 490 which it boasted in 1851. Its current occupants have a wide spread of modern occupations, but historically it's always had agriculture at its heart. Its farming origins are truly emphasised in the 1901 census, when every single person here was either employed in the farming industry or in village support occupations. The first real break with this tradition came shortly after World War II, when extensive stone quarrying on the south side of the parish finally reached into the village itself. It's got many tales to tell, but perhaps none more fascinating than the tale of Charles Hudson, who in 1865 died whilst attempting to do something which nobody had ever done before. Let's go and find out what that was. We begin at the village pub, the Cross Swords Inn. Although there were cottages licensed to sell ale here as far back as 1684, this was almost certainly built specifically for that purpose. That's in stark contrast to the other former pub, which was called the Blue Horse. It no longer exists, as it's been converted into a private house. We'll see it later. The only linear part of this route sees us climb a hill to check out this building. Although it looks like a house, it is in fact the village hall, which hosts a variety of regular activities such as Pilates classes and bingo. Outside the hall we've got a parish notice board, and that's Skillington in the books. 5 down and 78 to go. Now for the circular part of this route. Described as crab-shaped on its extensive village website, Skillington has a wide diversity of housing to suit all tastes. The spectrum of its people is broad, and as opposed to many other local villages, Skillington has not become the domain of the well-off at the expense of everyone else. It has something for everyone. Okay, so now we're going to turn right onto Lord's Lane. Now this is a hill, you would have seen this in the drive-in. It's quite a steep hill as well. Thankfully it is in the shade. With it being warm today, I don't want to be climbing a hill if it's like in full sunlight. I think I'd die. Let's head up Lord's Lane and back towards the village green. Just like in South Witham, being in the vicinity of Buckminster means there are many things around here with blue in their name. This street is called Blue Town. Over the road is the Blue House, which actually doesn't have anything blue on it. Stick with me on this, folks. In the Buckminster episode, I will explain all. Lord's Lane brings us to the main village green, which is also known as the Square. As simply as I can put it, as village centres go, this is nothing short of idyllic. It's surrounded by lovely old properties, including this, the former Blue Horse pub. Both this and the Cross Swords were regular haunts for airmen during World War II. On the other side of the square we have a phone box, and overlooking the green there's also a Methodist church, built in 1847. Skillington used to be visited regularly by a Methodist preacher from Grantham, Alfred Roberts, whose daughter Margaret would become Britain's first female Prime Minister, Baroness Thatcher. Beautiful village green, isn't it? It's great that it's split into two bits as well. You can walk straight through it. You can perch on one of the benches and sit under the shade for a little bit. Good idea on a day like this. Okay, this next bit is very residential now. It forms a loop around the back of the Methodist chapel before rejoining that road over there, and then we will go up to the church to sort of complete a larger loop. It's like a loop within a loop, this. This section of the village isn't all that exciting if I'm totally honest. It's a collection of residential streets which run around the back of the square, Stone Pit Lane being the main one. There's some pretty decent views up here though. At this point we're at one of the highest points in the village, overlooking some stunning countryside. Stone Pit Lane joins Buckminster Lane, which runs south to that village, although you'd be daft to attempt that trip in a car because it looks quite rough. In fact, in the 1700s, when Skillington had fewer roads, both Colsterworth Road and Buckminster Lane were little more than bridle paths. Colsterworth Road has since become the village's main street, and until the early 1900s, both it and Church Street were jointly known as Far Street, hence the name of Far House on the corner of the square. We're now walking uphill again in a northwesterly direction up Back Lane, which runs into Church Street eventually at the second of the two village greens. Okay, so now we've reached Middle Street's junction with Back Lane. If you carry on up the latter, you're heading towards Skillington's church. Let's go and find it. As you reach the top of the hill, the spire of St James's Church comes into view, but before we get to that, we've got a very interesting cross to see. On the second green is what's known as a moot cross. OS maps originally record this as being sited on the square above the main green. Why and when it was moved here has never been ascertained. So let's go into the church. St James's is a Grade 1 listed building whose construction spans many centuries, but it has 11th century Anglo-Saxon origins. Now, to celebrate the advent of the second millennium, a set of kneelers were made which can be found within this church, which record key items in the village's history. The most notable of these events, which is also recorded by way of memorial windows and a display, was the death of the Reverend Charles Hudson in 1865. The tower has 5 bells, and the 5th one was added after Hudson's death. Hudson himself had purchased the 4th bell out of his own pocket. Okay, so the church is open. Here we are inside. So let's have a look and see what we can find in here. First thing I've noticed is this floor. Look at this fantastic purple carpet. Don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. I think it's actually supposed to be blue, but it's just the way the light's catching it, I think. Into the chancel. Here we go. Up to the altar. Lots of glass in here, not all stained. That's definitely not stained right there. Got a tablet on the wall here, sacred to the memory of Charles William Henry Reynolds, a priest, missioner, Gorse Hill, Swindon, Wiltshire, 1874, Walton and New Milladam, West Yorkshire, 1875, deacon, 1876, priest, 1877, diocese of Bloemfontein, South Africa, curate of Philoppolis, oh, it's hard to say, Philoppolis. I apologise if I didn't pronounce that right. Vicar of Skillington, anyway, from 1894 until 1930. That was really hard to say. On the other wall, we've got something about Charles Hudson, who was a vicar of Skillington. Let's have a little look at this. It's quite difficult to read this. He was born in Ripon, the son of Joshua and Jane Hudson, and attended St Peter's School in York before studying at St John's College, Cambridge. And he was a victor here as well. Let's head down the other way. Massive organ. Take a look at that. Now on the back wall, there's another one of those boards. And this one is to do with the restoration of the church. There you go, look, Church of St James Restoration Programme. So you can see what it was like before and what it's now like. Looks a lot better, doesn't it? Some details about it just there. I'm not gonna read those out because obviously you can read them yourself if I just pause. If you pause the video, you can read them yourself if you're interested. So at the back we've got the font, bell ropes. Obviously the tower is above us. Brilliant. There's a couple of tablets in here. Something to do with the Diocese of Lincoln on that one. And there's one at the top there, John Musson of Osgoodby, left to the poor of Skillington. I can't read the rest of it. Obviously he must have been some kind of benefactor to the church. Beautiful church anyway, big tall spire. You can see this for a long way around the village. And yeah, it's nice and cool in here. I'm just taking the opportunity to have a few extra minutes and cool down because it's got really warm out there now. But we aren't far from the end. After we've exited the church, it's just a simple walk straight back down the road to the centre of the village. It completes the circle, if you like, and that will be Skillington complete. Charles Hudson was a remarkable man. He was one of the best amateur mountain climbers of his day, and in 1865 he would die whilst doing what he loved to do. He was a member of a party attempting to become the first to climb the famous Matterhorn mountain in the Alps. The party was led by Edward Whymper, and so is often referred to as the Whymper Expedition. They successfully managed to climb the mountain, narrowly beating out a team of Italians, but as any rock climber will tell you, climbing to the top of a mountain is only half the battle, because of course, you have to get down again. It was on the way down that some members of the team suffered a fatal accident. They fell over a crevasse as the rope that held them together parted. 4 of the team, including Hudson, fell 4,000 feet to their deaths, an accident that was fully reported in the Times. The Hudson Memorial window in the chancel of St James's Church shows the Matterhorn, an ice pick, and a broken rope. Time to leave another village behind. I loved it here in Skillington, quite simply one of the most beautiful villages I've covered so far in Lincolnshire. It's not every day you find a story like that of Charles Hudson either. Stick with me, in the next episode we'll be tackling something a bit more sciencey. I'll see you there, folks. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.